Welcome back to Vote 07, and the votes have been flowing in. Our reporters at the 18 counts will continue to bring you all the drama and intrigue from those places. We'll be quizzing the politicians here in the studio in a few minutes.
And I'm here with Dr. Sidney Elliott from Queen's University. We'll be working to track all the crucial transfers. And BBC Northern Ireland's political editor Mark Devenport is here too, providing the in-depth analysis. But first, here's Donna.
And I begin with some breaking news. Gerry Maguire, the independent Republican candidate in Fermanagh, South Tyrone, has been arrested and is being questioned about the attempted murder of a UDR officer in 1981. Mr Maguire, seen here on the right while canvassing for the election, was detained in the car park after leaving the Count Centre in Omagh. He's being questioned in a serious crime suite in Antrim. Well, when it comes to the poll results, it's been a good day for the DUP and Sinn Féin as counting continues in the Assembly election. Alliance got a boost when they came second in the poll in East Belfast. Elsewhere, the UK Unionist leader Bob McCartney is struggling in North Down. And the former DUP MLA Paul Berry is in danger of losing his seat in Newry and Armagh. Our reporter Mervyn Jess has a roundup of the political colour and contrast on the first day of vote counting.
A new day in Northern Ireland, but does it herald a new dawn for politics? At 9 o'clock this morning, the ballot boxes were cracked open and an army of staff in the 8 counting centres started getting to grips with the paper trail leading to the next Stormont Assembly.
Folks, how are you? Good to see you.
By lunchtime, Ian Paisley was on the move, confident that he would be confirmed as leader of the largest political party.
The sun's rising and the stars are setting for other people.
Are you ready to do a deal with Sinn Féin?
We will enter into talks tomorrow with the Secretary of State. We will be meeting the Prime Minister next week, and the hard negotiations are now going to start. The real no. Sinn Féin are not entitled to be at the table until they declare themselves for democracy. I am a Democrat. I don't speak to loyalist paramilitaries. I don't speak to Sinn Féin. I have one policy for all. All people must be equal under the law. All people must be equal and subject to the law. And until that happens, there is no place for them in the government of Northern Ireland.
Martin McGuinness was trying to find a place at the Count Centre as he manoeuvred his way through the media scrum. In Belfast, his party president was in buoyant mood as news filtered through of Sinn Féin successes. And he had this message for the DUP.
Well, I would like to think that Ian Paisley will use any renewed mandate positively. I keep quoting his remarks at St Andrews when he talked about the future being for our children and grandchildren, and it wasn't exactly what Bobby Sands said, but Bobby did say that that our revenge will be the laughter of our children. So I think that's what the future is about, and I would like to think that Ian Paisley will use that vote in a very, very positive way.
In East Belfast, there was an early boost for Alliance when Naomi Long outpolled Ulster Unionist leader Ray Jampy, coming second to Peter Robinson of the DUP.
The people in East Belfast certainly want people who are not just able to work for them on the ground, which we have been doing for the last 3 years consistently, but who are also able to change things like laws and legislation. And unless we have the Assembly up and running, that will not happen. I think all of us have a huge responsibility as elected representatives to do the job we've been elected to do. And I think that requires the DUP to actually just gird up and get on with it.
Former DUP MLA Paul Berry is under pressure in Newry and Armagh, as is the UK Unionist leader Bob McCartney in North Down. Anna Lowe of the Alliance Party, seen here on the left with Don Purvis of the PUP, could be about to make electoral history. If she wins in South Belfast, she'll be the first Chinese person ever elected to a parliament in the UK. But there may be bad news for the DUP's Diane Dodds, who's struggling in West Belfast. Former Sinn Féin member Davy Hyland, who stood as an independent, is among the losers. There's been a lot of finger-licking by those counting the thousands of ballot papers, and there's more to come. But the man in charge of the operation has indicated it may be time for change.
I think in the 21st century we have to be thinking very seriously about whether counting ballot papers manually and taking, in some cases, nearly 2 days to do it is the right way forward.
Danny Kennedy of the Ulster Unionists is certain to take a seat in Newry and Armagh, although he has conceded that his party is not having a particularly good election.
More disappointing than we had hoped, but we were starting from a very, very low base indeed, based on the 2005 election, and when we bear that in mind, we also bear in mind that the government have indulged the two largest parties considerably, and in fact the DUP in the late stages of the campaign predictably played the trump card that unionist people had to vote for them in order to keep Sinn Féin out.
Electronic devices are helping people to keep tabs on what's happening. It may have been dubbed a low-key election, but there's a keen interest in the results, as relayed through the more conventional radio and television broadcasts. But for most of the candidates, there's no substitute for actually being there. Counting in some places could go on to midnight, and it will resume again in the morning. Mervyn Jess, BBC Newsline.
Now, some other news, and a retired magistrate is angry at the arrest of a former special branch officer amid allegations of a cover-up in his daughter's murder. Tom Travers was shot 6 times and his 22-year-old daughter Mary was killed when an IRA gang attacked them as they left Mass in 1984. For an interview in today's Belfast Telegraph, Mr Travers said he was furious at the arrest of the officer, who claims there was a cover-up of the killing. Our Home Affairs correspondent Vincent Kearney reports.
Magistrate Tom Travers was shot 6 times and his daughter Mary was killed when IRA gunmen attacked them as they left Mass in South Belfast in April 1984. A woman was later jailed for the murder, but a retired special branch officer claims there was a cover-up in the investigation to protect an IRA informer. The officer says he contacted the police ombudsman 4 years ago, but withdrew his cooperation 2 years later because he was unhappy with the investigation into his claims. The officer claims that a member of the IRA, who was a police agent, was allowed to destroy vital evidence, including the murder weapon. He says this was done to protect another police informer. The officer making these claims was arrested yesterday and questioned about alleged neglect of duty in 1984. He was released on police bail pending further questioning. Tom Travers has strongly criticised the ombudsman. He says the special branch officer is a valuable witness trying to reveal the truth about his daughter's murder and expose a cover-up. Vincent Kearney, BBC Newsline, Belfast.
A 23-year-old man has died in a road crash in County Antrim. Stephen Turner from Dunamalach Road in Ballycastle was a passenger in a van which left the Drones Road in Armoy this morning. It's thought the driver was not seriously injured and only the van was involved. The road was closed for a time while forensic experts examined the scene. A university technician has been convicted of robbing a Belfast lingerie shop at knife point. Robert Boyd from Broadlands in Carrickfergus had denied stealing goods from Orchid Lingerie on the Lisburn Road in 2005. A Crown Court jury were told he may have thought he was a female elf from a role-playing game when he carried out the robbery. Following the guilty verdict, he was released on bail and will be sentenced at a later date. A 38-year-old man has been arrested at George Best Belfast City Airport for disorderly behaviour on an aircraft. He was detained after getting off from a flight from Manchester. The police are investigating a fire which caused extensive damage to a car in West Belfast. Windows and a door of a nearby house in Slieve do View off the Springfield Road were also damaged. The police believe the incident may be linked to an ongoing dispute in the Ballymurphy area. Rugby and Inst have beaten Methody 11-7 in the semi-final of the Northern Bank Schools Cup at Ravenhill. They will face Wallace High School in the final on the 19th of March. Finally, for the moment, the weather forecast. Tonight we can expect clear spells and showers. Some will be a bit wintry. Tomorrow there'll be more blustery showers. Some heavy with hail or sleet and bright spells between the showers. Feeling chilly though in a blustery wind with a high of 8 Celsius. It'll be milder into the weekend but still windy at times, which will make it feel cool. Saturday rather cloudy with light rain. A wet and windy start on Sunday, but it should brighten up later on. I'll be back with more updates on the election results right throughout the evening. For now, back to you, Noel.
Thank you, Donna. Let's plunge straight into the political maelstrom with the DUP Deputy Leader Peter Robinson, who's at the King's Hall. Mr Robinson, elected yourself, of course, on what has been a very, very good day for the DUP.
Yes, I'm delighted with the showing so far. Of course, this is a proportional representation election, so a lot can happen in the later counts, and we're trusting that this will go forward. In my own constituency in East Belfast, we still have the possibility of getting 3 seats, the same in North Belfast. We're hoping that Diane can hold on in the West Belfast constituency. And up and down the country, there are a number of opportunities that I think many people would not have put in our column before the count began.
OK, so what are the implications of today's vote? You asked for an election, you've got it, you'll probably find you've increased your mandate. What does that mean for the resumption of devolved government?
Well, it means that people have endorsed the election manifesto that we put forward under a slogan of getting it right. People want us to get it right. There are issues that have to be resolved, both with the government and there are issues still outstanding as far as Sinn Féin are concerned. The community have given us the mandate in order to ensure that those things are done. I hope that Sinn Féin and the government can do them, and I hope they can do them in the sort of timescale that the Secretary of State has laid out. But whether they do or not, we have to have those conditions met.
The sort of timescale, you're talking about the 26th of March?
Well, the Secretary of State has been talking about the 26th of March. He set the deadline. I hope the government can keep that deadline in relation to the financial package and the other outstanding issues. I hope Sinn Féin can keep that deadline in terms of giving a full commitment of support to the police, the courts and the rule of law.
So you're telling
no more equivocation from Sinn Féin, no more cherry picking which functions of the police they're going to support, no more conditionality surrounding it. Let's have full demonstrated support for the police and the courts.
So you're telling people who voted for you tonight that you could be in government on the 26th of March. It's a possibility.
We've been telling them throughout the campaign, we'll be in government as soon as the conditions are met. We're ready. We want to get on with it. Others should stop dragging their feet.
Well, is there any possibility that those conditions could be met by the 26th?
You're asking the wrong person. It's up to others to meet those conditions. If they turbocharge their efforts, perhaps there is. If they keep dragging their feet, then there won't be. It's not up to me, it's up to them.
If you don't get into full government on the 26th, are there circumstances which would be some kind of halfway house, some kind of pledge to take office at some non-specified later date, but something that would allow the government to say this has been up and running on the 26th?
Well, we're not wanting to drag it out. We want the business done. It's up to others to complete the road. They have to transform, they have to conform. Let them get on and do it.
OK, Peter Robinson, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Ballymena and Sinn Féin's chief negotiator, Martin McGuinness. Martin McGuinness, Peter Robinson says you've got to turbocharge your efforts. You're there with your other party, Michelle O'Neill, of course, and Francie Malloy, but let's talk to you.
Well, the first thing to be said is that myself and Michelle and Francie very much appreciate the support that we've received from the people of South Derry and East Tyrone and the Mid-Ulster constituency, who have returned the 3 of us on the first count, a fairly spectacular result by any standards. The question now, of course, is how we use the tremendous mandate that we've received from the people, and the fact that Sinn Féin is increasing its support right across the north clearly places a responsibility on us as politicians to move forward to the March 26th deadline to see the power sharing and all Ireland institutions restored. But the DUP now have a big decision to make, and I think that we should take with a pinch of salt what they say today. I'm more interested in what they say tomorrow and the next day and the days that lead up to the 26th.
What they're saying today is that this result is a defeat for the Sinn Féin agenda, that you are going to have to, let me say what Peter Robinson said again, turbocharge your efforts.
Well, I admire your effort to drag me into a catcalling exercise with the DUP, but that's not going to succeed. I represent real people. Real people voted for Sinn Féin and have given us an even more increased mandate to deal with issues that affect them in their daily lives, things like water charges, the whole issue of rural planning, the whole issue of our health services and our education system, along with a whole plethora of other issues that we have to get to grips with. And I want to do that with Ian Paisley and with Peter Robinson in government by the 26th of March. Now, that's the challenge.
All right. Will you accept? Let me ask you quickly, because we're running out of time. Will you accept any circumstances which would be less than fully operational power-sharing government on the 26th of March?
I believe that if we do not have a power-sharing government on the 26th of March, that the Assembly should be abolished. Assembly members should not get 1 penny pay, and both governments should immediately announce the joint partnership arrangements to take this forward, leaving the door open for Ian Paisley. What is absolutely critical now is for Plan A to be implemented, but if we can't have that, if the DUP continue to sit outside, then both governments must move on with all the other aspects of the Good Friday Agreement implemented through the joint governmental arrangements.
Okay, Martin McGuinness and your escorts there, thank you very much indeed. Let's go and see how this is all shaking down in terms of statistics. Mark is with us.
We've had quite a few results since we were last here, Noel. There's a familiar sight, Parliament buildings, of course, at Stormont. If we fly in through one of the top windows, this is the Assembly chamber. These are the results so far. Members returned. We have 30 declared, 13 DUP, 1 Ulster Unionist, that's the party leader Sir Reg MP himself in East Belfast, 13 Sinn Féin, 2 SDLP, and we have 1 Alliance Party representative, and of course that's Naomi Long in East Belfast. So that's the way it looks at the moment, but still an awful lot of results to come in. If I just wander over to my other desk over here, where I can control some of the detailed constituencies and join Mark Devenport and Sydney Elliott from Queen's University. Let's take a look at some of these in a bit more detail, Mark. The Newry and Armagh result came in. We didn't get a chance to look at it in detail. Do you want to have a quick word on that? Connor Murphy and Cathal Boylan home comfortably over the quota?
Yeah, this was a good result for Sinn Féin because there were some predictions beforehand that the SDLP might make inroads here, possibly with Davy Hyland, the former Sinn Féin MLA, splitting the Sinn Féin vote, but instead Sinn Féin has held on to its vote. Looks like they'll get all 3 of their candidates in there, and Paul Berry will disappear because William Irwin is going to take his place at the DUP.
OK, we're going to find out what's happening in South Antrim, I think. We'll come back to these figures in a second or two, but there are live developments, of course, while we're on air. So let's see what's happening.
Have been deemed elected. There will be no speeches by candidates until after the final declaration. This is an announcement of the outcome of the first stage of the count for the South Antrim constituency. The total number of ballot papers counted was 38,481. 38481. There were 306 rejected papers, 306. The number of valid papers was therefore 38,175. 38175. The quota is 5,454. 5454. The number of first preference votes given for each candidate was as follows. Thomas Burns, SDLP, 2,721. 2721. David Burnside, UUP, 4,507. 4507. Trevor Clark, DUP, 4,302. 4302. Marcella Delaney, Workers' Party, 89. 89. David Ford, Alliance, 5,007. 5007. Daniel de Berg-Kinahan, UUP, 2,391. 2391. Mel Lucas, DUP, 2,840. 2840. Robert Law McCartney, UKUP, 893. 893. Noreen McClelland, SDLP, 1,526. 1526. Robert Thomas McRae, DUP, 6,023. 6023. Mitchell McLaughlin, Sinn Féin, 6,000 313. Six, 313. Stephen Nicol, UUP, 927, 927. Stephen O'Brien, Conservative, 129, 129. Pete Whitcroft, Green Party, 507, 507. Mitchell McLaughlin and Robert Thomas William McCrae have reached the quota and are deemed elected. The next stage involves the transfer of their surplus votes in accordance with the preference shown. I will announce the outcome of that stage when it is known. Thank you.
Well, that's a fascinating result, no doubt about it, and I'm glad we took that live. Mark Devenport, Willie McCrae and Sinn Féin's Mitchell McLaughlin are home and dry in South Antrim. A lot of talk about whether Mitchell McLaughlin might have taken a bit of a gamble there, but clearly not.
That is quite something. I don't think anybody would have expected him to top the poll. There was a lot of talk beforehand as to whether he might squeeze out David Ford for the last seat. In fact, David Ford was quoted by one of the papers as saying, "This will be the end of one of our careers. I don't intend it to be me."
Well, David Ford's sitting in third position.
In fact, it looks like it won't be the end of either of their careers, because it looks like both of them are, you know, obviously Mitchell McLaughlin already elected, David Ford really quite well up there. So what we're looking at here is potentially a big loss of the SDLP seat because of the internal divisions there. Alternatively, I suppose there's potential still for them maybe to squeeze through against another DUP candidate. What do you think, Sidney?
Well, SDLP in total have about 0.78 of a quota, so they're still in the running and they're still there. But the result with Mitchell McLaughlin shows the effect of actually parachuting in a candidate into a fresh constituency, and one where I have to say last time we had the funny, if not tragic, situation of Martin Main announcing his own election only to find himself being gazumped by David Ford for the last seat through transfers. So in a sense, this is actually a triumph, and actually to have pipped the DUP in this seat in this way for first preference votes, despite the vote management which goes on, was a very good result.
Mark, just a word about David Burnside. I mean, this was billed as the clash of the Titans. David Burnside, the former MP for the seat, and Willie McCrae. In fact, David Burnside, if I look at these figures right, is in fourth position, and he's bound to be disappointed at that.
I think he will be disappointed. It was said that David Burnside had a publicity coup at the campaign when he announced he might be bidding for Glasgow Rangers, but it looks like he's still got some work to do in his home patch here in South Antrim.
OK, well, I think we're going to leave the picture here at the moment. We'll come back, hopefully, and look at some other results in just a moment or two. But that certainly is a fascinating development, Noel. Would you agree?
Most certainly, Mark. There's been another fascinating development down in Fermanagh, South Tyrone. Julian Fowler can tell us about it. An arrest, Julian.
That's right, Noel. I understand that Jerry Maguire, the independent Republican who ran a high-profile campaign here against Sinn Féin's decision on policing, was arrested in the car park of Omagh Leisure Centre as he left the Count Centre here. I understand that was a planned police operation carried out by the Serious Crime Branch, and it was in connection with the attempted murder of a part-time UDR man near Ballagawley in 1981. I also understand that that part-time UDR, a soldier, is also here at the Count Centre. He was delivering post at the time. He's now actually a serving DUP councillor. Now, I understand from the police that they're saying that the significance of the arrest is that it shows that no deal has been done regarding on the runs. I believe Jerry Maguire has been taken from Omagh and is on his way to Antrim Serious Crime Suite for questioning.
Julian, thank you very much indeed. Let's go now to the Ulster Unionist leader, Sir Reg MP. Sir Reg, if you look at the figures on our television screen there, DUP 13 seats, Ulster Unionist 1 seat. I know this is a PR election, it's very early days, but you will admit this has been a very, very disappointing day for you.
Oh yes, I mean I'm nothing but realistic, Mark. This has been was always going to be a hill climb for us, starting from a very, very low base in 2005, when the government changed the law in the St Andrews Agreement Act whereby Sinn Féin could become First Minister even though they would be a minority in the Assembly, that was always going to create a sectarian headcount situation.
Do you really think that's one of the things that's accounted for your poor performance?
It's a contributing factor, and of course it was quite a deliberate decision to do that. But at the end of the day, two points I would make to you. Our party has undertaken a lot of heavy lifting in the last decade. Many of the things that we want to achieve are still achievable. For instance, our objective was to ensure that we had a viable, functioning, devolved Stormont. That is still possible. The people, I believe, want that to happen, and they want it to happen quickly. I do not believe there's public support out there to keep Stormont running, to keep politicians paid, and the whole operation there not delivering the job for which it is wanted.
If you went into this election with 24 seats, allowing for the defections from your party after 2003, if you come out of this election with 20 or 21 or 19, will you consider you've had your chance and you should get out of that hot seat?
No, I think you've got to be fair. I can only deal with the situation that I inherited from 2005, and my objective is to see an administration formed. I believe it will be formed. The DUP ultimately will huff and puff, but ultimately they're going to have to do this business.
Okay.
The Ulster Unionist Party will be part of that administration, and we will do everything in our power to see that it works and that the normal politics, which I believe most people want, are delivered.
Sir Reg, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll just nip across the King's Hall there to Alistair MacDonald, the SDLP deputy leader who was elected in South Belfast. Not a great day, but not a bad day for the SDLP.
Well, it's not a bad day. We've held our own, and we're still in there fighting in a number of constituencies. So
the big disappointment, perhaps, Sharon Hockey and Newry Armagh?
Well, we had a great result in South Belfast. Our vote was up some 4 or 5% and against very difficult, very competitive election with Anna Lowe. And well, right across the spectrum, we had some very competitive people involved in the election. So we're very pleased to have lifted the vote in South Belfast. Yes, I have to admit that I was personally disappointed for Sharon because Sharon has put up a tremendous fight. And
but it seems you're going to remain on the sidelines. The big battle at Stormont will still be between the DUP and Sinn Féin.
Well, I think that was the way the whole thing was set up, because, I mean, government has lined this whole thing up for a big battle between Sinn Féin and the DUP. And to a large extent, that's understandable. They have been the problem parties for the last 10 years. They're the people that have had to get it together, and while they talk about delivering, the reality is they're very slow and drag their heels about delivering. We decided a long time ago where the future of Northern Ireland and the island of Ireland lay, and we decided to put our shoulder to the wheel to create the peace and the prosperity that's needed here, and we'll still be doing that, and we'll be providing the leadership.
Alistair MacDonald, thank you very much indeed. That's the end of this little excerpt. You will be able to keep right up to date online, and of course we'll be back in about half an hour's time over on BBC Two. Wendy and Seamus are over on BBC Radio Ulster, keeping the wheels turning. They're going to give you the address of that online service, bbc.co.uk/N Ireland News. So we'll be back in half an hour with lots more news, lots more personalities, lots more drama, lots more winners and losers. Until then, bye-bye.